So yeah, I have completed my PhD in German studies. That gave me the opportunity, the research gave me the opportunity to stay in Germany for 6 years as a DAAD scholar, as the scholar of German Academic Exchange Service. I had the opportunity to study, rather continue with my PhD research at the University of Göttingen in Germany, in Lower Saxony. So yeah, I'm born and brought up in Mumbai. And as a blind individual, I attended regular schools, regular colleges, so was always a part of mainstream education. My parents ensured rather that I was always at par with my sighted classmates, friends, colleagues. I was super excited to be on my own, and that was, of course, the opportunity then for me to explore my not just my surroundings per se, but also to explore the German culture in true sense of the term, because experience the varied nuances of this culture, which we have only studied in books and in films, or through mere. I would say superficial, but yet not such deep conversations with the exchange students or the um, visiting faculty that we encounter at our campuses in India. So I was absolutely thrilled and at the prospect of going on my own. My parents were, of course, slightly worried because I was going to be on my own. I stayed at a hostel, and well, I just proved everyone. Not, I mean, I reassured my parents that I can be on my own and independent individual. Um, who I am today, and I proved it to the world that a disability is not a barrier. So in that sense, I really enjoyed my stay. I could just not just live independently, but also prove myself on so many fronts. And I think Germany is the land that gave me that opportunity. So, first thing first, being a foodie, I love to explore different foods and the cuisine, and that's what I could do. I mean, I could just eat all that meat and chocolate and drink as much as beer I wanted to. So I think not just German cuisine, but I also relish Turkish cuisine and also overall European cuisine. I really love to say. I mean, get the exposure to. Plus, I mean, wine is something I really enjoyed. Well, coming to the serious part of it, I think it was the university life, my life as a researcher, which I really cherished. So my growth as a research scholar, it's the gift that I received from this day. And otherwise, as far as facilities are concerned, I think Germany is one of those countries where, especially amongst other things, disability awareness is really high. And that's something I really miss back home in India, I must confess. So whether it was traveling by Deutsche Bahn or bus, I mean, any mode of public transport for that matter, or just walking on foot, trying to find my way to the next supermarket and getting, your walking through your day-to-day chores, getting your groceries, or whether it's finding my way to a cafe to just chill out on a Sunday afternoon. I guess I enjoyed every aspect of it because in Germany I could just approach a stranger and then I would just get the help that I needed, and that help was not offered out of any sympathy or pity, but those individuals actually treat you as their equal, and that's one thing which I really appreciate in Germany. And yeah, there are many other things, of course, but I would say for me, it was the freedom that I had, the freedom to be myself was something that I really value. Well, I think I am the wrong person to answer that question because I'm absolutely enamored by the German culture and by the country. But of course, there are certain drawbacks to every system, and you also meet nerds, by the way. So that was one of my one of such encounters. That was my first cultural shock as well. In fact, where I was in Tübingen at the University of Tübingen near Stuttgart. That was my first visit ever to Germany and my first foreign visit as an adult. And there I was just hanging out with friends at their apartment. It was a rented apartment which was shared with the landlady. And suddenly I could hear these steps thundering and someone just bolted downstairs and they're like, hey. And I was like, yes, excuse me. And I knew that the person was speaking to me because I could hear her, she was addressing me. And she's like, you know what? I don't like I don't entertain blind individuals. I don't like individuals with disability entering my house. And I was so appalled. I was so shocked. I was like, I just didn't have any words because you're in a foreign land, you don't know how to react, and being the first time, you don't know what cultural boundaries, to cross, and what paths do you trade on in order to tackle such a intercultural conflict, basically. So I didn't really say anything to her. I just left. But then I, of course, ensured that I reported this to the concerned project coordinator who was responsible for us international students. And it was then that I got to know that this person was undergoing psychiatric treatment. So, I also then understood her reaction, so to say. Of course not. She was an old lady and there's nothing to be pardoned about it. But I think forgiveness is the only key, I would say, in this case. Of course, it was a rude shock, and that there are, unfortunately, some individuals, particularly senior citizens, who can be racist and biased towards international population. But to compensate for this experience, when I went to Germany around, I went first in 2011 on a scholarship, and then in 2014 again as DAAD research scholar. So I used to visit an animal shelter there, and my friend who accompanied me there, we later made friends, she has Down syndrome. And this was the person who was one of the best escorts, and she described things so beautifully and in such picturesque manner that I could actually complete my landscapes at times, the visuals which were missing from my observations. And also, this was the person who was very protective about me, and even I could help her in several ways where her cognitive limitations came to the fore. So that was such a fulfilling friendship, and the fact that in German schools, and she was in her 50s, mind you, she was not young. So in German schools, even people with disabilities, no matter which, are taught certain things. And one of the things that they had learned is how to escort someone, like an individual with blindness or visual impairment. That was fascinating indeed. Every experience has two sides. The way every coin has two sides. So it's up to us how we take things, really. Well, that's my funda, at least, and that's what I would share. I think we need to stand up for ourselves and be ourselves fearlessly. That's all I would say, because that's something I've practiced myself. Because on one hand, living in India or any similar culture that we're born and brought up in, it's almost imposed on us that we're supposed to speak, act, dress, or conduct ourselves in a certain way as a woman. And I think, when you get the opportunity to experience a different culture, it's not just exploring or experiencing that culture, but also viewing our own quote unquote own culture with an objective lens. And that's what I could do for myself. And of course, there would be, some being human is, there are certain challenges which are universal, and I guess every woman would have her own way to break her barriers and her glass ceilings. It took me almost a year till I had really good friends, and I was actually settled in the sense that I could just be comfortable. I could navigate my surroundings from day one. Being alone, you are compelled to do that. Well, I would say my persistence kind of paid off. I am not a person to give up. Well, I think for me personally, reading helped me. Reading was a stress buster. Books provided that comfort, to that strength to navigate through unfamiliar terrain, and also my family, my parents, who have been my constant throughout. So just one call, and then all my stress and at times even research fatigue that we have. My parents have been my constant. Books, and I love pets, as I've mentioned earlier. So I used to go visit animal shelters, volunteer there, which really helped me. And I think what also helps you is being open and empathetic. You're just being open to not just different cultures, but individuals who are slightly different than you. So being open and being empathetic really helps, I guess, is my perception, of course. All Germany was a paradise in that sense. I love dogs, and there was one thing which I could really enjoy to my heart's content, being surrounded by dogs and meeting dogs all over, not just on streets, but also in cafes and museums and all such places where you won't generally expect them to be. Just one thing I would like to add on, since you talk about stress busters. My research which brought me there, I could also experience those shades of non-visual aesthetics, which I talk about in my research. So there were museums which were so visual otherwise, but the audio description and the museum personnel who was trained to describe things to a blind visitor, those were the experiences which really shaped my personality and also rekindled my own perception, in the sense that it just reaffirmed my belief that sky is the limit, and nothing is actually inaccessible if your sighted counterparts could just walk that one step with you and towards you. Well, there's so much actually, but it reminds me of these lines by Indra Nooyi, who had said in her book My Life in Full, she said, "It's a calling, it's not a job, and you have to do it with your hands, heart, and head." So I think we as women need to follow our passion. That's what will get us there eventually, where we want. I really, personally, I find these lines really inspiring, and I try to follow them and live by them, so to say. For me, it was my research till now, and it would always be.